And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel. Today I want to talk to you about Gloomhaven. Now, Sam Z and I did a first impressions of Gloomhaven several weeks ago. I've also done some playthroughs, some live playthroughs of Gloomhaven. I did a component overview of Gloomhaven. And now I want to give you my full review of Gloomhaven. Now, to be fair, I haven't finished Gloomhaven. That review you'd probably have to wait over a year for, probably. And so my experience is probably not complete, but I don't think my rating is going to change much at this point. And so in this review, I'm going to do something a little bit different here. I'm going to just talk about the game and different points of things I like and don't like about the game and tell you my final opinion on it at the end. And if you want an overview on how to play the game, there are a ton of those on the internet. So I'm not going to waste time in this video doing that, especially since there's just so much in the game. Let's just talk about it and the things I like and don't like. First of all, I want to talk about the characters. Now, I haven't seen all the characters in the game, but I've seen a good chunk of them. And I am fascinated by these characters and how each of the characters has a very unique feel to them. In most games that I've played, they follow the Dungeons and Dragons tropes. We have the fighter, we have the wizard, we have the barbarian, the paladin, but they even can be gone into that where you have the one who deals out the damage, you have the tank, you have the magic, and you have the healer. There's like 4 major archetypes. These characters do a good job at breaking out of that. First of all, there's no elves and dwarves. They are different races here, and the races have a cool feel to them. They have a very distinctive feel to them. They have a lot of backstory to them. Each of the characters has a really fun and neat backstory. And what I really liked in this game was just how entertaining it was to see them and watch them as they leveled up. Each of the characters became more unique and more fun. Now, I mentioned that they didn't really meet in the thing of, hey, fighter, and this one's a healer. In fact, most of them came across as multi-class characters from other archetype fantasies. And what I mean by that is, this person's a strong fighter, but they also heal. This person was stealing stuff, but they also had range attacks. And I don't know how to explain it, but they had this like mix of abilities that I haven't seen before. Again, it was really refreshing for me to take a look at these characters. And I really liked, but also didn't like, didn't like in a good way, I guess. In this game, your characters are leveling up, and they're going to retire based on different things. And again, I'm not trying to spoil anything in this review. If you've gotten this far, I'm not spoiling it all here. But as your characters level up, they're going to retire, and you'll get new characters who will show up. The thing is, I want my characters to level up, and I'm like, ooh, let's retire them, because when we retire them, we get a new character. But I'm disappointed because I really grew to like these characters. These are my characters. I like to hang out with these guys, and now they're leaving. And then it's really cool. There's a possibility that your retired characters can show up in the story later on. And I find that just a fascinating thing. So the characters. Another thing is the setting, Gloomhaven. The setting, I think, here is a really fully realized, bustling city with different things going on in it. And the theme here is unique. Again, it's not that whole normal fantasy trope. It's a darker theme, but it's not too dark. Like, everything isn't like eyeballs and skulls rolling around. But there's some serious stuff going on in this land. And it's just the way that the story interacts with each other. It's a consistent story. As time goes by, I meet a certain character from a specific race, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know how that race operates. I know how those guys are. In fact, we got one on our team. But I liked how that worked across the board and how there was global changes to the game. Different things could happen. Now, I wish there was more story. There's city events. There are events as you go back and forth to adventures. I love those. And that was a really cool thing. The game is mostly tactical combat. It really is. But I do love that outsiding story. I thought that was cool. It was great. My biggest complaint would be I wish there was more of it. Now, there are some negatives to the game. I thought that the pacing is a little slow, and that the difficulty is a little high. The pacing is slow at first because you're like, ooh, so this is how things operate. Great, okay. Ooh, can I level up? No, you can't level up yet. You can level up. Ooh, can I level up next mission? Probably not. Maybe in a few missions. And that's fine. That's how most RPGs are, right? You level up, but there's so much cool stuff. And honestly, the game gets way more fun as you level up. Sure, the monsters can level up and get more difficult, but as you level up, you have more cards that you have for your character. Each character has that distinctive feeling. That distinctive feeling gets even stronger as the missions go, because you're really pulling off some really cool abilities and setting up these massively neat combos, and your hit deck is getting to be very unique compared to everybody else, and the special abilities that you have. I really felt like, once you're hitting, like, let's say level 3, suddenly you're like, whoa, now I can do stuff. And I wish that came faster. I also think the initial scenario is extremely difficult, even on normal level. So you got to dump it down to easy level, play through it there, and then stay on easy level for a while. Now, people are different, right? And I will never be shamed by people saying, you're playing on easy level? I can't believe. Yeah, you know what? I play on easy level on video games too a lot of times because I'm there for the fun. And yeah, sure, once you get good at it, maybe I'll be like, all right, let's try it on normal. Then maybe hard. Never nightmare. Or whatever, I do that with games, but I want to experience the game and have a lot of fun, and I don't mind being a little powerful in the game. So I do like the fact that the easiness, the levels of everything is really easy to adjust. I just wish that they had maybe walked you through it a little bit better coming in. The components, there is a ton of them. You get your money's worth in this game. The Kickstarter price for this was an unbelievable deal. The Kickstarter price for it now, I believe, is that they did a reprint for like $99. That's still a really good deal for this game. There's just so much in the box. Yeah, so much in the box. It is hard to sort. I have an insert from Meeple Realty where it keeps all my pieces and things sorted for me, and that's another extra expense, right, for the game. And, so there is that. You don't need to do that, but before that, it takes a while to set the game up and put it down. And there are some legacy aspects to the game, right? As you go through, there are cards that are removed. Now, I don't rip these cards up. I'm a big fan of ripping cards up and stuff, but I don't rip them up because I might reset and play the game with someone else later on. And there's stickers that go on the board and stuff, but that stuff's very minor. It doesn't really affect the game that much. So there's a legacy feel to it, and there are things that open and you discover stuff as time goes by, but it's not a huge deal, and it can be reset, so I did enjoy that. All right, combat. Combat is the main part of this game. You're going to go in and you're going to fight. Now, for me, combat in these situations is, hey, let's chuck some dice, let's go in and fight. There's no dice in this game. In fact, it's a very thinky game. In fact, each room becomes a puzzle. And I normally am not a huge fan of that, but I'm so fascinated with how these characters fight, because the characters themselves have these cards, and I love them. The cards are so different from character to character. I already talked about that, but you're using the top on one, the bottom on the other. What combo am I going to use? How am I going to use these? The cards can be modified as time goes by, which is really cool. I love that aspect of the game. And figuring out how to work the characters together to fight in these combat systems. The magic system was an interesting one to me, where you are, like when you basically are charging up fire, the whole room is charged up with fire. So if an enemy uses fire, now you're in trouble. But you can use that to work with other people, and it's a unique, interesting system I haven't seen before. But I also liked how the combat system itself basically did away with weapons and things. You have weapons in this stuff, but they become more like one-shot things. Your weapons are innate, the way you use your cards. So I don't have to sit there and go, wait, how many shots of that healing potion? No, I got a card that lets you heal. Now, it takes some getting used to how these cards flow, and how some cards, when you use them, are gone. You can no longer use it in that mission. Some cards, when you use them, you get to use them again, but you're going to be slowly losing a card as time goes by. The combat here is just really fascinating. And the way the cards work, the way that the combat comes into play, as you sit there and say, okay, I have to, get stuff done in a certain amount of time. There's that timer that's just constantly dinging, as you're slowly losing cards. And then the monsters program movement. Now, lots of games have programmable movement, but this one has specific decks for different kinds. And so each monster acts a very different way. And I find that really fascinating, how that monster program of movement and the way that the countdown comes. This game is a puzzle, right? But at first you're like, oh no, there's no way to get everything done I want to do. But as time comes by, you become a well-oiled machine. Yeah, we know how to handle this. We can take care of this. We can take these guys out. Just really entertaining in that way. So I have these combat cards with these dual use that you're running out with a very intriguing magic system with these program monsters, with each monster having a deck and special abilities, and then the combat decks. No dice in this game, right? But these combat decks are so cool because they're yours, and they allow all kinds of neat things. Your status, you're blessed, throw some cards in the deck. You're cursed, throw some cards in the deck. You have this ability, draw 2, keep 1. You have this ability, draw 2, keep the worst 1. Wow, it's so simple, it's so smooth, and after a while you're like, wow, this thing comes together, and you're slowly adding your own neat cards into it, and you're pushing people back, and you're doing this, and again, it comes back to the point of I love my character so much, I don't want to say goodbye to them, because the combat just, after a while you're like, yeah, this is how it works, and combat is hard at first, but as time goes by, you learn how to work it, you learn how to move on the boards, and fight the different monsters. And yeah, I guess if you like take the theme out and it's just a big puzzle, that's true, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like my guy smashed a chair up and then threw it at the person across the room, and then they took something and then they dragged them into this trap over here and watched them explode, and it's just so fun. I can see the stories when I'm playing this game. And I'm playing this game, right? I played most of this game solo. The game can be played with multiple players, and I don't normally play solo games. You look at the games behind me, people often ask me, what's your favorite solo game? I say, if I want to play a solo game, I want to play a computer game. But I love this game solo. I mean, my characters work together better than I do with other ones, but it also works well in a multiplayer setting. And it also doesn't take that long, right? It's a 60 to 90 minute game and each session, and you can save your time and go through it and go through it and go through it. And I don't know how many missions the final game's going to end up being, but there's a lot of them. We're talking, I've heard 100 hours. That seems very logical to play, so that's neat. So what are my final thoughts? Gloomhaven has a long setup. It's a real pain to fit into the box. There's a lot of rules involved with Gloomhaven. It's a little fiddly at times, and yet I rank it a 10. You say, wait a minute. If you go by a rubric, you shouldn't. You're right, I shouldn't. But you know what? Gloomhaven is greater than the sum. The sum is greater than the parts. It just is. Gloomhaven is a game that I've woken up thinking about playing. Gloomhaven is a game that I would rather play than a computer version of an RPG where all this stuff is done for me. Gloomhaven is a game that's replacing Descent for me. I mean, yeah, sometimes I'll still play Descent because I want to play the Overseer versus the players and stuff, but this game has like dominated. I'm a reviewer. I have to play new games all the time, and I'm sitting there going, I could play some new games, or I could play Gloomhaven. And you know what else? If you told me right now that I had to stop my campaign of Gloomhaven and start over again, I would be like, okay, really? So there's 100 hours in Gloomhaven, and then I can go back and do it all again? Yeah. And I haven't seen all the characters yet. I haven't seen all the things that are going to happen. There's still more items that are going to be introduced into the story. There's still more things that are going to show up, and I better see some like characters who've retired again. This game is phenomenal. It is easily one of my favorite games. There's a lot of hype out there, folks. A lot of people are saying this game is great. You should know by now that I'm going to call games exactly as I see them. And there's games that have been hyped before, and I'm like, whatever. But this game is worth the hype. It's not going to be for everyone, that's for sure, right? Not everyone's going to want to go through this puzzly dungeon crawler type game. But I am. It's amazing.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.